As adults, many of us can see the value of having leadership skills and would love to impart some of those on the rising generation. While most experts agree you need to start young. So today we're talking about steps moms and dads can take now to help kids become better leaders in their schools, communities, and throughout the rest of their lives. Cevin Ormond is an author and motivational speaker with decades of experience helping adults become effective leaders, and now he's focusing on kids. Thank you so much for coming, Cevin.
Thank you.
Tell us why leadership is such an important quality for kids to develop.
Well, it's an important quality for everybody because it permeates everything through the rest of your life. The better at it you are, the better everything works. The worse at it you are, not so good.
That makes sense. Now, what is leadership really? What qualities are you looking to when you say leadership?
You know, it's really about developing yourself so that people want to follow you. Because leadership is felt. You feel a good leader. And if you don't feel that, you're not going to want to follow them.
Are there any major roadblocks to leadership, to being a leader, that you see in kids or adults?
The biggest problem is that people don't understand what leadership is at all. They, you know, I've got the MBA that I got from Utah, and you know, they teach you management. And people think that management is leadership. They're not the same. They think leadership is about a position that somebody, you know, has in an organization or something. It's not that either. Leadership is about who you are so that people want to follow you and adopt the vision that you set.
Okay, and I think you're absolutely right. It's something about people have to want to follow you, and that isn't necessarily a position.
No,
it's something that is kind of within you.
Totally.
So you start by saying one of the things that parents and grandparents can do as far as helping kids develop a strategy is to start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
That's really so critical. It's so critical in everything. But you know, we take our kids to music lessons, we take them to football practice or whatever else we do, and we do that deliberately. But what we don't do deliberately is say, you know what, this kid's probably not going to be in the NFL. This kid's probably not going to be in the NBA. This kid's probably not going to play Carnegie Hall. But they're going to need to know how to lead in their life. And so we have to deliberately do it, just like we deliberately do these other things. We have to make time and make it happen.
So are you saying skip over some of those activities if it doesn't lead to that, or you're saying within those activities you can actually develop these leadership skills?
Well, both really, but it has to be a separate focus because within those things, a lot of the structures will get in the way of the development. If you have a deliberate focus to do that, then you'll find the ways within those structures and in other ways.
Okay, and parents really should model. We talk a lot about modeling behavior. Kids tend to follow behavior, model it. And so parents should do that, model leadership. How do we do that?
Well, you can't lead where you won't go, and you can't teach what you don't know, so you've got to learn it yourself. The first thing is that parents have to understand that they've got to develop their own leadership to some degree so that they can stay far enough ahead of their kids so that they can teach them something as they go along. You don't have to stay a long ways ahead, but you have to stay enough ahead that you can always bring them along.
And that's a big ask for adults sometimes. We get in our comfort zone, and we would like to stay in our comfort zone.
There is no growth in the comfort zone. I'm sorry, but that's not the way it works.
Right.
Dang it.
So another tip that you say is that we can reduce technology overuse.
Well, and misuse, because both of those are problematic. You see, a lot of time spent on video games and things like that could be spent using the Kindle app and reading something that would be valuable. So that's a repurpose of the technology. You're still using the technology perhaps, but to utilize it in ways that are going to help and give them the practice they need.
Okay, so still using the technology, but kind of shifting the focus of it. And is reading the main thing you would suggest?
That's step one. It always starts with that because you've got to gather the information. That's not the only thing, but of course it starts with that. Leaders are readers. And it becomes a lifestyle, a lifelong lifestyle. I read all the time. I've written 3 books. I still read them. I read other books. I read all kinds of things all the time.
So you really need to have that background. You need that knowledge before you can assume that you're ready to be a leader.
Well, it's a starting point. Again, you know, don't wait for all the lights to be green. You know, the first green light, move and start moving along. You just have to stay a little ways ahead. And so it's not something that is this big thing you've got to have all completed before you get started. That doesn't work, because by that time your kids are grown and gone, and it's too late. So don't go there, but get started and then bring them with you.
And I love your last point. You say that you have to give kids a chance to practice.
Oh yeah.
How do we do that? You know, life is busy. Like you said, a lot of us have activities. Parents are busy. They have multiple kids. You know, how do we find that time? How do we, and what are examples of giving a...
Well, you know, let's start with the idea of practice itself. Practice is so critical, you know. It's like I get in the cab in New York and I say to the cabbie, how do I get to Carnegie Hall? And he turns to me and goes, practice, 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 right? So, but it really is so key, because leadership is developed experientially. It is not developed intellectually. And so you have to get the information and then you have to put it into practice so you can have the experiences. And so, for example, you know, in this book, what I did was I created a parable, a leadership parable, and you've got a mentor that's helping this child along in terms of developing leadership to create a project for a science fair in this example. And that's basically the idea, is you find those things that give them the chance to work and give them the chance to develop these skills so that they can develop themselves and develop the skills and say, oh, well, this works, or this is how this works, or so they can learn it experientially.
That's a great point. Having the experience is the most important part of this. Now, Cevin, thank you so much for your tips. Tell us where we can find you, where we can get more information about your book.
You know, over the last 28 years, I've entertained, educated, and inspired over 350,000 people at over 4,000 events. I'm a professional speaker. That's what I do. I'm also a #1 international best-selling author. I have 3 books. This is my second. The idea is you can find me at kevinormond.com, but you got to spell it right. It's CEVINORMOND. And you can find at kidscanbeleaders.com. What I've done is I've created a reading list and a list of these 5 points that people can download for free.
Great. Thanks so much, Cevin. We appreciate it.